Discover how a homeless girl's amazing request transformed Mockery into tears in just 30 seconds. Lily sat on a frayed bench outside the cafe, the rich aroma of roasted coffee wafting through the air like an inviting siren call. She felt her stomach clench, a hollow ache reminding her of her existence, a world of survival where breakfast had become a rare luxury. While college students jostled at tables, laughing and sharing stories of weekend plans, she clutched the worn strap of her backpack, its contents a ragged reminder of who she used to be. Once a diligent student, she had dreamed of revealing the hidden threads of society through her pen. Now, her life had unraveled in a single family crisis, leaving her to navigate the unforgiving streets of the city. As she sat, trying to maintain a shred of dignity, Lily overheard snickers peppering the air. Words dripped with disdain wrapped tightly around her. She wished she could fade into the fabric of the bench, escape the scrutiny of their mocking gazes. Her heart thudded painfully. A familiar storm brewed within her. Why did their laughter pierce her so deeply? Each giggle felt like a strike against her worth, igniting an unseen fire of anger. Memories surged, her mother's lessons about hard work, loyalty, and standing tall in adversity echoing against the reality of her humiliation. She felt torn between the person she wanted to be and the girl who sat on the edge of a coffee shop, vulnerable and invisible. The tension clamored, a relentless beat in her chest. What was she doing here? The insatiable ache of being seen versus the dread of rejection skirmished violently inside her. In a moment of unexpected clarity, she dropped her shoulders back, stood up, and approached the engaging group. The immediate laughter sputtered, replaced by a thick silence, the risk of vulnerability pulsing fiercely in her veins. Gathering her strength, she took a breath that felt like weights dragging her down. "Can you spare a few minutes for a story?" Her voice escalated, delivering the question saturated with hope and fear. Before she could question her own audacity, she noticed how the shift in atmosphere pulled them from their comfort. Lily plunged forward, unearthing herself from the facade of the homeless girl into a voice of passion. "I dream of being a journalist. I want to expose social injustice, not as a headline, but through the eyes of those who live it." Her heart raced as she spoke, every syllable fueled by the urgency of her dreams clawing against the cynicism surrounding her. The gravity of her experiences rippled through her words. She recounted sleepless nights in the shelter, the struggle to maintain her integrity in a world that constantly stripped it from her. Before she realized, she captured their attention, and their judgment began a slow dissolve into something deeper. The air thickened with something palpable, shared humanity embroidered in the tension. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. But as her story unraveled, tears began to glisten in the eyes of the students. Their laughter transformed into an awkward tension, minds racing through waves of empathy and guilt. Or was it guilt? They stared at her, the girl, who carried a raw honesty that peeled back their comfortable realities. Faces turned to mirrors reflecting privilege and ignorance. And as they listened, the weight of Lily's words began to settle on their shoulders. But in that charged silence, dread encroached on her moment of revelation. Would they remember? Would they care beyond the cafe walls? The eerie thought provoked a flutter of panic, the enormity of sharing her story clashing with the fear of insignificance. Lily turned her gaze away, unsure if she could bear to watch their reactions. The storm inside her coiled tighter, leaving an unanswered question hanging in the air. With one last glance over her shoulder and a heart filled with trepidation, she slipped into the thrumming streets, leaving the group haunted by her voice and the urgency of change lingering like smoke. What would they do with the weight of her truth? The rest remained unwritten, yet imprinted. Lily barely made it a few steps before the heaviness of doubt began to settle around her shoulders like a damp cloak. What had she done? The vivid disbelief on their faces, blurring the line between intrigue and disdain, replayed in her mind like a sickening loop. Each hurried footfall echoed her uncertainty, anger fueling her speed. She felt exposed, as if she had handed her heart over to strangers and dared them to handle it gently. Finding refuge in a side alley, she leaned against a cold brick wall, feeling the gritty surface scrape against her palm as she tried to breathe through the tightness of her chest. The few coins rattling in her backpack felt insignificant now, swallowed by the urgency of her desire for something greater. What could she possibly achieve with their momentary attention? She had hoped for something profound, a spark that could ignite the change she yearned to see, but instead, a haunting feeling of insignificance loomed. But then, realization struck her. She had given them a glimpse into a world they couldn't comprehend. It wasn't just a moment. It was a potential shift. The word she had chosen, heavy with emotion, might linger and compel at least one of them to act. Though her heart raced with insecurity, her spirit began to flicker with determination. With a newfound sense of purpose, she resolved to facilitate her dreams, not merely in desperate hope, but as a professional. Lily dove deeper into her intentions, sketching a mental outline of a plan. She envisioned interviewing people like herself, not just randomly, but with intentionality, stories highlighting struggles, resilience, and most importantly, truths that needed to be heard. Each voice she'd record could transform hearts, make waves of change, inspire action. Her trembling breaths began to feel like stepping stones, each one clearing her mind while sharpening her focus. That evening, she found herself at the community library, the fragrance of aged pages and wood enveloping her with warmth. Lily's fingers glided over a collection of book spines, searching. She needed resources, guides on writing, journalism, and social issues. As she moved through the aisles, a fire ignited in her. She was reclaiming her narrative, honing her voice into a weapon to combat ignorance. Hours slipped by as she pored over text, documenting notes with hungry scribbles. Each word felt like a thread stitching her identity back together as she absorbed the stories of seasoned journalists and the profound impact of their work. A sense of belonging rekindled within her. Among these pages, she saw pieces of herself mirrored back. Although battered and worn, she was still capable of creating a story worth telling. But it wasn't enough. Lily realized she needed to break down barriers. Her own insecurities threatened to limit her potential. How could she pursue truth if she was shackled by fear? With a trembling resolve, she penned her first draft of an article, titled Behind the Shadows, detailing her own experience. It was raw, poignant, and richly layered with emotion. This would be her catharsis, a reclamation of power that would go beyond mere survival. As the night deepened, distractions quieted around her, leaving only the tapping of her keyboard filling the silence. She pressed send, submitting her piece to a local online magazine that focused on social issues. A monumental step. Her heart raced as she envisioned the potential response. Would it resonate? Would it spark something in others as it had in her? With hope ignited and the weight of uncertainty still lurking, she wondered how the world would respond. The moment had arrived for her to face the next wave of judgment, the kind she had both feared and longed for. But amid the storm of mixed emotions, an empowering realization clawed through. She had begun to take control of her narrative, ready to confront whatever followed with the strength of her pen. Was this the beginning of her true transformation, or merely the incipient waves of an unpredictable journey? As she stared at the blinking cursor on her screen, a new question crystallized. Who will hear her voice next, and how far would it go? Lily's heart didn't settle for long. Anticipation and anxiety spiraled together like a tornado inside her. Days passed since she pressed send, but each moment stretched thin with uncertainty. The silence after submission felt louder than her thoughts. Life continued around her, while she remained caught in a turbulent sea of hopes and fears. In an attempt to regain her focus, she turned to the library once more, becoming a familiar visitor. Piles of books on storytelling, courage, and resilience filled her small desk, their spines practically glowing with possibility. Each page she turned not only sparked ideas, but also leaned her further into her professional aspirations. She wasn't merely taking refuge. She was redefining her identity. Still, doubt persisted, a specter hanging over her resolve. A text message broke the stillness of one afternoon, vibrating her phone to life. It was a response from the magazine. She hesitated for a moment, her thumb hovering over the screen. Would it be the validation she craved, or a dismissal that would break her spirit anew? Gritting her teeth, she opened it, her mind whirring. "Thank you for your submission, Lily. We found Behind the Shadows compelling and wish to share it on our platform. We'll also provide feedback for your future works." Relief washed over her, but it was instantly tainted by a new fear. What if this exposure opened her to mockery instead of understanding? Moments of triumph seemed intertwined with treacherous vulnerability, rewritten in the same breath. Determined not to wallow, she chose to see this as an opportunity, a generous invitation to amplify her voice further rather than stifle it. With renewed commitment, she crafted a detailed outline for her next article, one that would focus on the unfiltered realities faced by those living on the streets. Distinct from her personal narrative, it would give space to others, their stories, their truths. She would be the conduit. But how to bridge the gaps of their guarded experiences and her need for honesty? In her mind, she replayed the faces of people she had encountered, cynical glances and distracted whispers. Yet there were also fleeting moments of connection, a reassuring nod or slight smile that revealed shared humanity. The idea sparked courage. It wouldn't just be journalism. It would be an act of empathy, a quest for understanding the immense weight of each individual story. Armed with her digital recorder and a notebook, she began visiting various homeless communities, eyes genuinely open and heart ready. Each encounter progressed with a blend of trepidation and excitement. At first, many were hesitant, keeping their walls firmly erect. With every rejection or breakthrough encounter, she questioned if this was truly the path she was meant to take. Her confidence wavered, marred by embarrassment, but she pressed on. The breakthrough came unexpectedly on a chilly afternoon when she met Marcus, a man perched on a bench wrapped in layers of worn blankets. His eyes danced with a subtle wisdom that intrigued her. When she shared her goal of telling stories, his guarded demeanor shifted, letting glimpses of curiosity shine through. "What isn't it for us?" he challenged, skepticism woven through his tone. "I want to help others understand," she replied, her heart pounding. "I want your stories, the real stories, to reach people who can make a difference." Marcus scrutinized her for several moments, the tension taut between them, before he sighed deeply. "All right, let's see if that passion can hold up." That evening, as she sat in front of her laptop replaying their conversation, a sense of conviction blended with exhilaration surged within her. This was no longer just about her moment in the light. It was about weaving a tapestry of voices usually lost to silence. The complexities of empathy began to unravel, her suspicions confronted by genuine connections unfolding one story at a time. Amidst this journey of discovery and growth, the question flashed anew: would she have the courage to delve deeper, despite the inevitable weaknesses it would reveal? The moment of truth loomed, beckoning her ever closer to confront the powerful currents of judgment and acceptance. Was she ready for what lay beneath her newfound ambition? As Marcus's words echoed in her mind, an unsettling thrill took hold. This was merely the beginning. What would she uncover next? The morning light draped over the city's cracked sidewalks as Lily prepared for another day of interviews. She clutched a tightly bound notebook filled with hurried scribbles and outlines that had emerged from her engagements with Marcus and others like him. Each interaction had carved deeper fissures into her initially simple understanding of homelessness, revealing layers of complexity and human resilience she hadn't anticipated. Yet, with every step toward the bench where she would meet her next interviewee, Apprehension tightened around her heart like a vice. What if she wasn't capable of telling their stories accurately? What if those stories entailed pain that couldn't be reconciled with her own? The thought gnawed at her, holding her in a mental flinch just shy of the moment's authenticity. On this day, she awaited the arrival of Zoe, a young woman who had been living on the streets for over a year. Lily's notes contained Zoe's fragmented stories of survival, a story marked by numerous obstacles, but also flickering hope. Despite it all, Zoe still managed to smile. The pressure mounted as Lily realized that every inquiry required not only journalistic integrity, but also genuine compassion. She spotted Zoe, her hair a tangled halo against the morning sun. As she approached, her nerves unraveled into a flurry of greeting. This immediate, raw connection grounded Lily momentarily, allowing her instincts to take over. They perched side by side on the bench, fingers curling around steaming cups of coffee. Lily's treat, a small but intentional gesture to encourage trust. "Why do you want to tell my story?" Zoe asked, her gaze both piercing and disarming. "People only want to hear the good parts." For a heartbeat, uncertainty washed over Lily. She had made promises to herself to be honest, to delve into the raw truth rather than the sugar-coated versions. "Because I think your story deserves to be told without filters. It's valuable, and it can't just be relegated to the margins." Zoe studied her carefully, the silence stretching between them until she finally nodded, as if granting Lily access to a hidden layer of her life that others failed to see. As the interview flowed, Lily felt herself transforming. She was no longer a detached observer. Her questions became less about simple information and more focused on illuminating depths of emotion. Zoe spoke about nights spent under bridges and the kindness of strangers who shared their food, interspersed with painful reveals about betrayal and loss. Lily found herself leaning in, her heart racing with the collision of solemnity and empowerment. "People don't realize we're just people," Zoe said, her voice trembling slightly. "We're not just our circumstances." The exchange ignited something primal within Lily, an urge to advocate, to capture their essence beyond the label society placed on them. The inner conflict she had wrestled with began to dissolve as understanding filled the spaces where doubt once thrived. When the conversation drew to a close, Zoe leaned forward, her usually guarded eyes brightening. "If you can help others see us, to really see us, then maybe I'll share more. Will you trust me?" Lily asked, feeling the weight of the responsibility settling on her shoulders. This was not just about her narrative, but about making space for others in the world that seldom listened. Zoe's nod was slow but certain, and within that moment, Lily recognized her evolving self, a storyteller steering through the waters of ethics and vulnerability with newfound resolve. Each interaction was shaping her, preparing her for an impending struggle, one where she might confront the very backlash she feared. Could she balance the weight of truth with the potential for backlash? Could she maintain her integrity in a world often accused of categorizing experiences? The tension of uncertainty tightened anew as these questions lingered, ready to collide with the unpredictable currents of reality. Was she truly prepared to step deeper into this uncharted territory, risking her own identity in the process? As she returned home, a new echo began to surface, louder than the rest, demanding her attention. The stakes had risen, and with each story, the pressure mounted. What would her next choice reveal about who she was becoming? The evening was heavy with lingering shadows as Lily settled into her small apartment, the glow of city lights spilling through her window. Around her, the walls were plastered with articles she admired, showcasing the stories of those who, against all odds, had made their voice heard. Yet she felt an internal dissonance, as if her own voice was just another faint whisper in a cacophony. Each story she gathered changed her, deepening her capacity for empathy, but also intensifying her fear of inadequacy. She opened Zoe's notes again, revisiting their conversation. The weight of the responsibility loomed larger. Zoe's plea to capture her essence reverberated in her mind. Did she have what it took? Each narrative she documented came with the potential to alter perceptions, but also the risk of exploitation. Her chest tightened as she considered how her own understanding of humanity was interwoven with the narratives of others. How delicate was the line she walked. As the night unfolded, Lily wrestled with the complexities of her growing passion. She found herself sipping tea, her mind racing with possibilities. Each word Zoe had uttered was a call to action, an invitation to advocate, to shed light on an overlooked truth. But what if she faltered? What if she misrepresented the intricacies of their lives? Driven by the urgency of her newfound motivation, she grabbed her laptop and began drafting an article about her experience. The words flowed raw, unfiltered, authentic. She poured her heart into describing Zoe's laughter despite the despair, the glimmers of hope that punctuated her struggles. Yet, as she compiled the piece, a gnawing doubt crept in. Was she romanticizing what was inherently tragic? Would the world see the beauty she witnessed, or would it turn a blind eye to the gravity of the situation? Suddenly, a notification pinged on her phone, a message from Marcus, a former interviewee whose story had been particularly heart-wrenching. He was reaching out to share his own experiences since they last spoke, expressing both gratitude for being heard and frustration about the cycle of misunderstanding and neglect that surrounded homelessness. "Lily, you have no idea how your words have impacted me," the message read. "But I'm also weary of being just a story. I need you to understand something important." Lily's heart sank as she read on, his request crystallizing a harsh reality. He wanted her to help him mobilize a dialogue, to advocate for real change, not just sell narratives to the public. But how could she bridge that gap? The thought unnerved her, and the pressure began to mount once more. The responsibility she felt was not merely about her writing. It was about actions, about amplifying voices while ensuring they remained centered. She typed a response, wrestled with her convictions. Every sentence she constructed bled into her hesitation about activism versus journalism. Was it possible to maintain her objectivity when the stakes were so personal? Could she be a vessel for their stories without co-opting their experiences? As the clock ticked past midnight, exhaustion tugged at her, yet she found herself invigorated by the challenge ahead. The contours of her journey were beginning to sharpen, but clarity eluded her. There was no denying the transformative power of these exchanges. Her voice had the potential to influence, to shine light where darkness resided, but at what cost to her integrity? Finally, Lily pushed back from her desk, the weight of uncertainty heavier than ever. She knew she would have to make a choice, to simply record stories or to actively engage in dismantling the stigma that surrounded them. The next morning, as she stepped outside, she sensed that a pivotal moment awaited her. Talking to Zoe had ignited something deep within, an insatiable desire to take her responsibility further. She couldn't remain on the fringes of the narrative anymore. It was time to confront her own fears and insecurities head-on. What would that confrontation look like? The question echoed in her mind as she set out. On her path, ready to face the unpredictable challenges that lay ahead. Would she find the courage to not only be the storyteller, but a true advocate for those whose stories deserve to be told and respected? Lily navigated the streets with a new purpose coursing through her veins, the early morning light morphing the familiar into something unrecognizable. The city resonated with an energy she hadn't noticed before. The bustling throngs of pedestrians and the distant harmonies of street musicians feeling like a collective heartbeat, pulsing in rhythm with her own renewed determination. Yet beneath her resolve lay an undercurrent of anxiety, uncertainty, clouding her vision of what lay ahead. Arriving at the local center that served the homeless community, she entered with a flutter of apprehension, anxiety clawing at her gut. She spotted Zoe in a corner, hovering over a table where a makeshift breakfast was being distributed. The sight of her, resolute yet worn, sparked something in Lily. Zoe was the epitome of resilience, embodying the very essence of struggle and hope that Lily had set out to capture. "Lily," Zoe exclaimed, her face lighting up. "You made it. I'm glad you're here." As they embraced, Lily felt the grounding weight of Zoe's reality. They settled at a small table, scribbled notes flanking uneven plates of eggs and toast. "Thank you for coming. I've been thinking a lot about what we discussed. What do you think should be our next step?" Zoe's eyes sparkled with purpose. Lily hesitated, glancing at the ordinary chaos of the room. "I really want to help, but I'm still grappling with how to balance documenting and taking action." Zoe studied her for a moment, the silence heavy between them. "You have a voice, Lily. Your words have power. But remember, it's not just about sharing stories. It's about changing perceptions." With those words, a ripple of clarity washed over her. It was true the ability to give a voice to the voiceless was not enough. It needed to be harnessed for change. She pulled out her notebook, energizing the conversation with bustling notes, ideas forming in her mind. "What if we host a series of storytelling workshops?" she suggested, her ambition igniting. "Invite others to share their stories, to be actively involved in shaping their narratives." Zoe's face brightened, and in the warmth of her enthusiasm, Lily found the courage to elaborate. It could serve as a platform for real dialogue, a way for people to connect with their struggles without reduction to statistics. But even as she spoke, a nagging fear whispered in the back of her mind. How could she ensure that the individuals sharing their stories weren't just seen as subjects? "If we're going to do this," Zoe reiterated, "it must come from a place of respect, understanding the complexities of what each person brings. You want to be a detached observer this time. You'll be advocating." The gravity of Zoe's words struck her like a thunderbolt, igniting an instinctual resolve. The task had grown more complicated, yet somehow empowering. "I'll commit to facilitating. We can explore how storytelling can evolve beyond mere retelling." The thought of using her skills in an entirely different capacity felt like the first steps toward discovering a newfound strength. Later that day, as Lily pieced together a rough plan, doubts circled her mind. Could she bear the weight of their stories? Would her voice truly amplify theirs? Yet the moment she scanned her reflections from their conversation, she caught herself feeling lighter, bursting with a sense of purpose. Each word she wrote became a step towards not just understanding, but action and advocacy rooted in authenticity. So intent was she on her mission that she hardly noticed the sun retreating behind the horizon, painting the sky in vibrant strokes of orange and pink. When she finally looked up, reality crashed into her as she saw Marcus standing at the entrance. A mix of anticipation and uncertainty painted across his features. This time, the stakes had changed. The dialogue she had envisioned now came with a face she recognized, a voice that articulated the very fears she had sung to in the dark of night. The air thickened with unspoken challenges as she stepped toward him, her heart racing. "What do you need?" "From me?" she asked, her breath catching in her throat. The moment of truth had arrived, and with it, the potential to confront shadows that no longer felt so distant. Would she take the leap into the deep unknown, or could she still retreat into the safety of mere storytelling? Lily stepped closer to Marcus, feeling the weight of her invitation hanging in the air. His eyes, searching and unsure, reflected the conflict swirling within her. This was no longer a simple story to capture. This was about forging a connection that could potentially alter their realities. "Lily," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I came because I need to tell my story, but it's hard. There are things I'm ashamed of." Her instinct was to flick through her notebook to formulate the right questions, but then she recalled Zoe's insistence on being present, on advocating, not just documenting. "It's okay, Marcus," she encouraged gently. "This is a space for honesty. You don't have to feel ashamed here." He shifted, his hands clenching by his sides. "You don't understand. Trying to talk about my life," he broke off, the frustration evident in his clenched jaw. "It's like standing on a stage in front of millions and being mocked instead of listened to." Those words struck deep, a ripple of understanding hitting her squarely in the chest. She thought of the stories that had been retold through generations, messages lost, voices unheard, and the potential to change all that. Marcus's turmoil became a living testament to the fear that haunted her. the fear of vulnerability. "Then let us do this together," she proposed, her resolve solidifying in the moment. "You tell your story, and we'll find a way to share it that doesn't expose your shame. Just focus on what you need, and I'll help." He hesitated, measuring her sincerity against the backdrop of his harsh reality. Seconds ticked by, and she could see the gears turning in his mind, beginning to discard the weight of his past. "All right." To Lily's surprise, he stepped forward, vulnerability etched into his features. "I've been homeless for 3 years. I was a chef, successful even, but addiction, it took everything from me." His admission hung heavy between them. As he spoke, she realized how every word was a visceral act of bravery. His shame faltered against his determination, and with each confession, Lily felt the resolve within her translate into something tactile, a promise made only to him. While he spoke of his struggles, she listened intently, her notebook forgotten, thoughts swirling. This wasn't merely about storytelling. It was about sharing power through narratives, reclaiming spaces, and forging connections where there seemed none before. She wondered how many hidden voices existed around her, stifled under fear and stigma. As Marcus continued, there was a shift. Beyond the awkward dynamics of past experiences, a powerful bond began to form within the exchange. In her mind, she replayed Zoe's words. It must come from a place of respect. What she couldn't predict was that Marcus's story was merely the beginning, the catalyst for a reckoning with her own demons. This wasn't just a personal transformation, this was an awakening. As the night wore on, they stood on the precipice of honesty and healing. Yet beneath the warmth of their interaction, the gravity of the situation pressed heavily on her. Could she act as a conduit for the raw, unpolished narratives of others without losing herself in the process? Unexpectedly, a voice crept into her thoughts. Would her advocacy provide healing or expose wounds deeper than she had anticipated? With Marcus's voice resonating in the back of her mind, she resolved to turn his story into a powerful testament, not for mere documentation, but as a challenge to everyone who might listen. She sensed that this undertaking would test her limits as it blazed a path for personal growth. As she prepared to wrap up their conversation, her mind racing with ideas, a new determination ignited within her. "Can we meet again?" Marcus asked, vulnerability glittering in his eyes. "I want to share more, and I think we can make this matter." "Yes," she affirmed, heart racing as their connection solidified like an unbreakable thread. "We can make this matter." But as she turned to leave, a chilling realization dawned upon her. What if Marcus's story rippled outwards, revealing truths she wasn't ready to face about herself, her past, or her unrecognized gifts? The challenge loomed ahead, and with it, the daunting question. Was she truly prepared to confront the shadowy corners of her existence revealed through other stories? The following day, the sun rose in a glimmering orange hue, but Lily felt its warmth was lost on her. She sat at her kitchen table, coffee untouched, staring at her notes, trying to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions that had enveloped her the night before. She hadn't merely listened to Marcus. She had exchanged fragments of her soul with another person, and it shook her to her core. What would come next? The prospect of sharing Marcus's story both exhilarated and terrified her. The stakes had risen with the call to be vulnerable. She realized that Luca, their shared narrative, ignited a flurry of questions she had long suppressed within herself. Who was she to share someone else's pain while still wrestling with her own? As the hours ticked by, Lily shifted her focus to work. Organizing her thoughts into coherent topics for her article had been her go-to method for overcoming chaos. Yet, each time she attempted to type, Marcus's raw honesty echoed in her ears. Every thought circled back to him. She was teetering on the edge of something profound, but her anxiety felt like shackles binding her. It was then she recalled Zoe's insistence on authenticity. What had she called it? Finding the truth in the cracks. The idea darted around in her mind, igniting a flicker of determination. "That it," she murmured, scribbling on a fresh page. "The truth in the cracks." She realized she needed to explore the crumbling spaces in her own life as she helped Marcus polish his narrative. How could she truly advocate for him if she avoided addressing her own complexities? Lily took a deep breath, a new resolve settling in her chest. She grabbed her phone and sent Marcus a message, proposing their next meeting. Let us not just share your story. Let us find a way to articulate the honesty within it. Together, the words felt right, and she sensed a sense of empowerment rising within her. Yet, as she awaited his response, her mind whirled with doubt. What if her probing only opened Marcus' wounds wider? What if he faltered, hesitated, or dismissed her offer, slamming shut that fragile door they had just begun to open? Suddenly, a notification pinged, startling her. His reply was succinct yet filled with eagerness. "I'd like that." When? The rush of adrenaline coursed through her as she realized this was an invitation for her to step deeper into her own healing journey. The next meeting could transform her into someone who didn't just document pain, but also engaged with it, wrestled with it, and learned to speak from a place of authenticity. Later, she found herself reflecting on how self-discovery often stems from confronting discomfort. She had avoided her own struggles for far too long under the pretense of focusing on others. Now, with Marcus's story as a launching point, she had to ask herself, what was she prepared to reveal about herself? What truths lay hidden, waiting to intertwine with his narrative? As the day faded, the weight of the unknown loomed heavier. Marcus needed her. In a twist of fate, he was giving her the opportunity to unearth her own untold tale. The following evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with shades of violet and pink, paranoia crept in. Could she authentically guide Marcus when she felt so unmoored herself? Would her own introspection only serve to amplify her insecurities? With every ounce of her being aching for clarity, she resolved that she would share her truths as well. And with that, she would stand alongside Marcus, not just as a narrator, but as a co-creator of their interconnected stories, each reflecting both light and shadow. But would confronting her truths help forge a stronger bond or fracture their fragile connection? The questions loomed as she readied herself for their next encounter, the intensity of anticipation sending shivers down her spine. Gripping the edges of her notebook, Lily took a deep breath. The time had come to face not only Marcus's past, but also her own. Would she emerge stronger or reveal more vulnerabilities than she had bargained for? Lily stood in her living room, a few half-hearted notes scattered across the coffee table. The hour of her meeting with Marcus approached, infused with an amalgam of anticipation and trepidation. With each tick of the clock, her confidence slipped further away, tangled in spirals of self-doubt. What was the point of digging into painful narratives if her own stories stood shrouded in silence? She moved to the window, allowing the evening light to frame her. The world outside bustled, people shuffling along in their nightly routines, blissfully unaware of the emotional turmoil raging within her. Lily felt a pang of jealousy. Their lives appeared so straightforward. How had they managed to escape the haunting shadows she couldn't seem to shake off? The phone buzzed again, pulling her from her thoughts. She checked the message Marcus was waiting at the cafe. The familiar lurch in her stomach returned as she grabbed her bag. There was no turning back now. This was the moment to either reveal her truth or stumble helplessly, caught in her own contradictions. Stepping into the cafe, the rich aroma of coffee enveloped her, a stark contrast to the chaotic thoughts swirling in her mind. She spotted Marcus already seated, his profile illuminated by the soft overhead lights. The sight of him sparked an unexpected warmth, reassuring in its familiarity. He looked up and smiled, a genuine, open expression that seemed to invite her into his world. "Hey, Lily," he greeted, his voice steady. "Thanks for coming." "Of course," she replied, sliding into the chair opposite him. The initial ease of their rapport was overshadowed by the enormity of the conversation looming ahead. "Are you ready?" he asked, though both of them understood it was more than merely discussing the article. They were on the cusp of exploration, laying bare stories steeped in grief, and determination. I think so. She hesitated, then drew a breath. But I'd like to start with something a bit different. I want to share my experience too, if you're okay with that. His eyebrows lifted slightly, curiosity mingled with caution. Sure, I'm listening. What began as shaky sentences gradually transformed into words filled with intention. She recounted moments of her childhood where she felt unheard, often overshadowed by those around her. Painful memories draped across her tongue like heavy stones, but each one she shared gradually lightened her burden. She unfolded the layers of her self-doubt, the critique she had silenced, the stories tucked away to avoid vulnerability. As she spoke, she noticed Marcus leaning forward, visibly engaged. There was a connection embedded in their shared honesty that pulsed in the air around them. With each revelation, their narratives began to weave together in unexpected ways. She could see the recognition in his eyes, the realization that they both bore the weight of burdens not meant to be carried alone. Yet as she navigated her truth, a dark thought danced in her mind. Was she shared too much? How would he perceive her after this? Would her story dim his own in his eyes? The flood of looming doubt threatened to drown out the connection she was beginning to build. Wow, thank you for sharing that, Marcus said after a moment of silence, his sincerity palpable. It's refreshing to hear someone else struggle, you know? His response caught her off guard. You really think so? Absolutely, he continued. We're often too hard on ourselves, too focused on the struggles of others that we forget to acknowledge our own. His words sank in, planting seeds in the fertile soil of Lily's mind. Perhaps this journey would not just be an excavation of Marcus's pain, but also an opportunity for both of them to embrace vulnerability as a form of strength. The idea rekindled a flickering hope within her belief that their intertwined stories could break barriers. As the conversation flowed, the boundaries between them dissolved, leaving raw truths hanging in the air. But just as she felt the burgeoning relief of shared experiences, a grim thought pierced through. Would they emerge from this exploration better, or would it expose fractures neither were prepared to face? Lily's heart raced as she considered the uncertainty lying ahead. There was still so much ground to traverse. Yet in this moment of vulnerability, she found clarity. This was a journey worth taking, even if it meant teetering on the precipice of their deeply buried fears. With the hour waning, she caught Marcus's gaze, bold and unwavering. Let us keep digging together. And as they grasped for one another as truths, the question lingered. Could they truly build resilience from their vulnerability, or would the weight of their stories, entwined together, prove too heavy to bear? Lily stood before the large glass windows of her apartment, the soft morning sun spilling in with a gentle warmth. It was a new day, one filled with potential and a renewed sense of purpose. Her previous meetings with Marcus had ignited a spark within her. Each shared story had become a thread woven into a tapestry of resilience, a testament to the power of connection. No longer would she be merely an observer. She was becoming an advocate. As she sipped her coffee, the remnants of doubt that lingered in her chest began to evaporate. The planning for their upcoming storytelling workshop was in full swing. She had secured a small community room, reached out to additional speakers, and designed flyers that beckoned participation. This afternoon, she would present their project to the real world, and the thought thrilled her to the core. Lily had made it a personal mission to reshape the narrative surrounding homeless individuals. She envisioned a platform that not only amplified their voices, but also invited others to participate in the dialogue of advocacy and understanding. Dispel the myths, erase the stigma, and start the conversation. That was her goal. After weeks of careful preparation, the day of the workshop arrived. As she stood at the front of the room, a nervous energy pulsed inside her. Chairs filled with 20 attendees, some were curious students, others seasoned community workers, and an electric anticipation filled the air. A shared heartbeat resonating, drawing them together. Good afternoon, everyone, she began, her voice steady yet tinged with anxious excitement. Thank you for being here today. This workshop is about listening and sharing. It's a chance to explore stories that often go unheard. With every word, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders, fueled by the supportive smiles around her. She introduced Marcus, who stepped forward to recount his journey across the threshold of addiction and homelessness. Listening to him speak, it was clear that every word carried the weight of his experiences, raw and genuine. The room held its breath as his narrative unfolded like a delicate blossom. By the end of his recounting, there were tears in the audience and not a single voice interjected. Lily could sense the energy shift. Empathy was solidifying in the space between speaker and listener. With the workshop in full swing, participants began forming small groups, sharing their reflections and insights. Lily listened as conversations ignited a newly awakened desire to delve deeper. They challenged one another's views on homelessness, sparred with preconceived notions, and celebrated the beauty of personal narratives. It was transformative. The very purpose she had envisioned was coming to life right in front of her. As the event unfolded, an unexpected moment arose. A woman named Sarah, who had mentioned her own past struggles with addiction, approached Marcus, and the two connected over their shared experiences. Their laughter mingled with their stories, breaking barriers and creating partnerships anew. Watching this unfold filled Lily's heart with immense joy. A tangible outcome had emerged from yesterday's worries. The evening wrapped up in a flurry of exchanges and fervent commitments. Lily's heart swelled with satisfaction as she saw participants sign up to assist Marcus in the continuation of their advocacy project. The room had transformed into a sanctuary of learning, challenging the narratives that had held them captive. Days turned into weeks, and the ripple effects of the workshop echoed across the city. Articles about the event published in local media, testimonials poured in from participants, and a social media campaign began to gain traction. People were sharing their stories, expressing their determination to foster change. Lily's initial doubt had given way to overflowing affirmation. She had stepped into her role as a leader. In the subsequent months, Lily and Marcus continued their collaboration, broadening their efforts. Their shared goal had expanded into community outreach initiatives, fundraising, and deeper dialogues with local leaders about sustainable solutions for homelessness. They facilitated storytelling sessions in various community centers, allowing others to join the fold of those once silenced by stigma. On a breezy autumn afternoon, Lily stood before the very coffee shop where it had all begun. A crowd gathered to celebrate their first ever public exhibition of stories collected over the past few months, curated to reflect the nuanced realities of homelessness. As she scanned the room, filled with an audience wanting to learn and understand, a wave of pride washed over her. Lily had conquered her fears of inadequacy and learned to embrace her vulnerabilities as strengths. She transformed her vision into action, empowered her peers to share their truths, and cultivated a movement that would continue beyond the confines of their initial workshops. She was no longer a homeless girl with a dream. She had evolved into a journalist, an advocate, and a burgeoning leader within her community. As she took the stage that day, a smile stretching across her face, the applause felt like validation or recognition of her efforts and growth. In that moment, she knew she was not just telling stories. She was amplifying voices, and together they were rewriting narratives. Reflecting on her journey, she was profoundly aware of the indelible mark her experiences had left on her. Lily was no longer lost in her past, but was creating a path of empowerment and transformation for herself and others. The girl who once hid in the shadows was now shining brightly, illuminating the way for countless others. This was her achievement, the victory born of vulnerability and determination, and with it, the promise of a brighter future. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that promise to inspire and awaken your passion for change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support this powerful narrative journey. Comment below your reactions and theories about Lily's triumph and transformation, letting your voice resonate within our community. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this inspiring conclusion and uncover their potential. Don't wait even one more second to show your support. Be a part of this movement.